From the heart of Maine, this is the DuView Podcast.
All right, and welcome to this week's episode of the DuView Podcast. I am your host, Du, a.k.a. Ryan Dumont, and I'm here solo this week for episode 11. No one in the studio, just me, myself, and I here. So to give you a solo episode here, looking back at my Labor Day weekend, because it was a ride, folks, let me tell you. Not just sharing this story with you to brag about my own happenings and doings, but it was actually, turns out to be a pretty good tale, so... starting out with the Friday night of Labor Day, I went down to Mansfield, Massachusetts to see Dead & Company. Anybody who follows the podcast knows I'm a pretty big Grateful Dead fan, Deadhead, so to have the opportunity to see Dead & Company, even though it's not the original lineup, I know, unfortunately born at a time where Jerry Garcia, died not too long or right after I was born. So with that being said, there was no way for me to actually see, and you had other members pass away in the 70s and whatever, so no way to really see the original lineup unless you actually, were around during the counterculture times and around during the psychedelic rock movement and whatever else. So, that being said, though, the show in Mansfield was my first concert easily in over a year since the pandemic. So it definitely took a little bit of adjustment and getting used to driving a little over 3 hours to the concert, and then just being around that many people again. It's the first time I've been around that many folks in a long while, so it definitely took a little bit of an adjustment there. But the show itself was unreal. Getting there wasn't too bad. Was joined by my friend Chappie from a previous episode, his friend Casey, and as well as Dadmont came down with us. My dad, Tony Dumont, had an extra ticket, so he gladly came, and he had a great time as well. He and I were talking about the show on the way back, and he goes, "It's one of the best concerts I've seen in years." He's seen quite a few folks, so that, said quite a lot, in my opinion, just to the quality and caliber of the show that they put on. So like I said, first concert in over a year, the atmosphere just showing up was really interesting because while folks tailgate football games or sporting events, Deadheads tailgate dead shows. It's an incredible atmosphere. You have, the wafting of marijuana throughout the parking lot. That goes without saying. However, the fact of the matter is just the amount of people that are just, cool, down-to-earth, peace and love type people. Everybody's really friendly, that type of thing. It's just a really unique atmosphere. And again, it's like the music tailgating in, like the equivalent of sports. It's like that big. That many people show up before to, hang out and whatever else to get ready for the show. And so it was definitely interesting walking up, seeing all the different little encampments of people in the various areas of the parking lot and whatever else. And so walking up was pretty easy. We had to show proof of either COVID vaccination or a recent negative test. And so, it felt pretty safe, all things considering. Swiped the tickets through, and away we were to our seats. And so if you've ever been to a show in Mansfield, you know that it's an amphitheater. So, your pit and the stage are lower than the back section of the area, or of the venue rather. And so with that, we were up, kind of at the higher part of the amphitheater, off to the, I guess if you're facing the stage, off to the left-hand side, which the seats were even great, even though they were a little bit further back. I mean, pit tickets for this show were right around $750, a little steep for my price range, but I still spent like $100 on tickets and still got pretty good seats, all things considered. Again, like, could still see them on the stage. They didn't look like ants or anything like that. And so that was a really great seating, really great venue. So if you ever have an opportunity to go see a show at Mansfield, I highly recommend it because it's really a really unique venue to hear a show, especially this certain show, for me at least. And so the show kicked off pretty promptly around 7 o'clock. They kicked things off with Mississippi Half Step, great tune. Played a few other really key tunes there, some of my favorites. They played Direwolf, Masterpiece, Terrapin Station, Truckin', Dark Star, and they ended the ended the show off with U.S. Blues. I'm missing a few other songs in there, but that's just off the top of my head here. And they all, in classic Dead fashion, they made classic improvisation right on the spot, extended songs, cut things in, extended solos, that type of stuff, and it was awesome. It was pretty close to a 3-hour show, if not more. Like I said, in true Grateful Dead, or in true Dead and Company fashion in this case. And so they also had, with the drum corps there, as folks know, the Grateful Dead had two drummers who are still around for Dead and Company, and so they did a little drum fill there, Mickey and Bill. It was really an interesting set of drum fills that they did there, because they both have full kits, and then Mickey Hart has a bunch of other auxiliary percussion with him, and so it was really cool, especially me being a drummer, to see that. Is just to see two of the better drummers that I really look up to in terms of psychedelic rock, but also just to see the improvisational spirit of it. A lot of rooted in a lot of drum circle type of stuff. It's a lot of improvisational, and it reminded me a lot of free flowing jazz, similar to what I talked about with Tony Gabriel in episode 4, with the type of jazz music that we talked about with his friend and co-musician Steve Grover wrote. A lot of that type of stuff that the Dead does remind me of a lot of the free-flowing forms that are in jazz, and so I think that there's some definite overlap for me, which is unique in a lot of ways, especially for those musical folks out there. Like I said, free-flowing form that just allows you to improvise and do really cool things with a certain group of people. There's nothing like playing music with a group that can improvise. You can just kind of look over at the guitar player and he'll just start playing something and you'll continue it on the drums. It's almost like an unspoken language. You can just look at somebody, kind of figure out what they're going to do. And that's definitely what these guys have done previously and continue to do, which really makes for a unique and awesome show. And another unique thing about seeing these guys, or specifically seeing Dead and Company, is also seeing John Mayer. Now, thinking back to the first time I ever heard John Mayer, was a long time ago. It was probably Body is a Wonderland or something, one of those songs. It was really lovey-dovey type stuff. And so when he started touring with the Dead, or the remaining members of the Dead, it was interesting to see the two, because he's obviously a fan growing up and whatever else. So with that being said, he played it fantastic. I mean, given it's not the same as seeing Jerry Garcia or hearing Jerry Garcia, so, it takes your ears a second to get used to it, but once they do, it's still awesome in its own way. I'm not saying it's a replacement or anything like that, but in its own way, for its own thing, to continue to see and hear some of these songs, performed live, it's nice that they've found somebody who, at least can fill the role in a pretty decent way. At least I think that's just my opinion. But John Mayer, like I said, the kid can shred and he can sing. And thinking back, the first time I had seen him actually play the guitar, it was on TV. And this was years ago when Stevie Ray Vaughan got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They showed the whole, inductee ceremony. And obviously Stevie Ray Vaughan's not with us anymore. He died, helicopter crash years ago. But the fact of the matter being, they had a bunch of musicians along with his band Double Trouble and his brother, who was in the Fabulous Thunderbirds, come on and play. And John Mayer was one of the guest guitarists, and they had him cover a Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar solo. And let me tell you, he did a great job. Similar to how he did covering a Jerry Garcia guitar solo, or a Dead guitar solo. And so he deserves a lot of props there. And like I said, fantastic job by John Mayer on the guitar, and also on the vocals too. And Bob Ware and the rest of the original members also played and sounded fantastic for being older. That's the interesting thing when you get to some of your older musicians, right? They can start to drop off a little bit. They can't hit the same key that they used to 20, 30 years ago. But with these guys, it was pretty spot on, pretty locked in still, even though, like I said, some of the folks are getting up there in age. With that, like I said, about a 3-hour show, awesome show. Wrap things up with U.S. Blues, as I said. And I actually had to boogie home the next day, which leads into the next part of the weekend where things get even crazier. So after the Dead and Company show, so keep in mind we're in Mansfield, Massachusetts. It's about 3 hours and some change home, give or take. And so we boogied back home because I had to be back to meet some of my friends the next day for my buddy Connor's bachelor party. So with that being said, the activity that was first chosen for the bachelor party was skydiving. That's right, folks. I jumped out of a plane. So coming off of the long trip home for the Dead and Company show, I had to wake up very early the next morning. I think it was like a turnaround to 3 hours of sleep, 2.5, 3 hours of sleep by the time I got home at the wee hours of the morning. But anyway, we went up to Waterville, Maine to Vacation Land Skydiving. Shout out to those guys. As part of my buddy Connor's bachelor party, he wanted to go skydiving. So I think about 8 of us got together in that group, 8 or 6 of us, something like that. And we went in tandem pairs and twos, and we did some skydiving. And so I'd never gone before. This was my first experience. Full admittance, before you're thinking about it, oh yeah, it's going to be awesome, everything like that. The nerves hit you a little bit the morning of, but to be in all honesty, folks, it's not that bad. If you love adrenaline, or if you like doing new things, like trying new things, highly recommend going skydiving. Not overly expensive. Not well, I mean, it still costs money, obviously, but like not as bad as you would think by any means. And so, like I said, we went up to Waterville, right at the Waterville. They're located right at the Waterville Municipal Airport up there. So you literally just walk through a gate, and they have a little tent set up, a little shack, do the whole safety spiel. If you're going up, you got to be safe, that type of thing, obviously. And so, with that being said, we did the whole safety talk and everything like that. And so they let you go down 2 at a time. They have a little small single prop plane that they load you into, and they take you up. So obviously you're hooked into an instructor. Like, we didn't go by ourselves, obviously, because if you did that, somebody would have died. So with that being said, they have you with an instructor. And like I said, they take you up in pairs of 2. So I was paired off with one of Connor's buddies from college. And so we went up together, and they fly you up to about 10,500 feet, 10.5, and you hop out. And for comparison, folks, the average commercial airline flight is about 30,000 feet. So we're 20,000 feet off from commercial cruising altitude there. So when you go up to 10,500 feet, it's a really cool trip up, because again, you're still low enough where you can make out stuff on the ground, right? And so you see different landmarks if you live in the area that you definitely recognize. Like, I could see all the way down to Spectacle Pond, where one of my other buddies lives. He could kind of see his house. You could follow Highway 95, which runs through the state of Maine, right up north. You could see it running north and south, which was really unique. You could definitely tell, like, oh, look, that's the highway going out for miles and miles and miles into the horizon. So with that being said, you could see Thomas College in Waterville as well. Looked up and down the Kennebec. It's a really, really awesome view, even before jumping out of the plane. This is while you're still in the plane. And the funny thing is, if anybody knows the historical story from American history about D.B. Cooper, he's like the official, unofficial mascot of skydivers. If you don't know the story, D.B. Cooper apparently stole a bunch of money and then hopped out of a plane over, I believe, Washington State, and he was never found. So he took off with a bunch of money and jumped out of a plane, parachuted out of a plane, and was never seen or heard from, and the money still hasn't been discovered. So he's like, I guess, the patron saint of skydivers, which is pretty funny in a lot of ways. So again, jumping out at 10.5, they have you move your little feet They have you move your feet out onto a little kind of metal plate, and you put your feet there, and you more or less lean forward, and when the instructor who's hooked to your back rolls out, you roll with him, and away you go. There's no hopping back in the plane at that point, guys. You're going. So with that being said, we did a couple front flips coming out of the plane, and the wind hits you. We went a little bit earlier in the morning, so it wasn't as chilly. Some of the guys who had went, like when we first got there in the early morning, said, oh, it was awful chilly coming down, which makes sense. Sun had been out a little bit longer for us, so it wasn't quite as bad. So we hopped out, and you hit pretty good speed right out of there. You don't realize too how much like extra skin you have around your face. I'll post the some of the video footage from my jump that I have, and so you see like whatever extra skin you have on your face ends up flapping around. It's like the if a dog was doing it, putting his head out the window or something like that. It's kind of like that. Everything's going blah, 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 type of thing. It's pretty funny to see on the video, but the speed you really hit is incredible. Really, really incredible. And so when you're coming down, again, the view is just awesome. You're cruising down at a pretty good speed, and then when it comes time to pull the chute, you get jerked around a little bit. Not too bad, but it's, again, you're going from a high speed to a lower speed. And so with that being said, it's quite a change there. So again, you're coming down. They let you take the reins a little bit, float around, control things, do a little 360 action. Doing some acrobatics in the air is an all-around good time. Take my word for it. And so They have you come down, and more or less you just kind of very leisurely skirt down and land on your butt, and you just kind of slide on the grass in between spots on the tarmac, and you're done. It's a lot longer to go up than it is to come down. It's kind of like if you've ever skied Lost Valley out in Auburn. It takes longer to go up the chair than it does to ski down the hill, and that's skydiving really. It takes longer to go up in the plane than it does to come down. So with that said, we had a very successful time skydiving. So thank you again, Vacation Land Skydiving, guys up in Waterville, Maine. Greatly appreciate it. So with that being said, everybody had a successful trip, and we're all going to be hopefully doing it again next year. So definitely looking forward to that, and highly recommend it for anybody that's been thinking about it. Just go and do it. You never know if you're going to like it or not until you actually do it. And in the case of jumping out of a plane, you really can't change that or interchange that with anything else. There's only one way to really experience that, and that's to do it. So highly recommend it. This goes on to part 3 of the bachelor party, or part 3 of the weekend, I guess. So later that day, we met up with a few other of our friends that didn't want to skydive, but did want to continue to participate in the rest of the festivities for the weekend. So on the afternoon of Saturday, we made our way up north from Waterville up to the Guilford, Sebec, Bower Bank area. And we stopped off at our friend the Antworth's camp. Let us stay up there. Thanks, Scott, Jake, and Josh, and the rest of the Antworth clan there. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. So we stayed up at camp, which if you guys have listened to the last solo episode I did about my summer top 10, that spot's on my summer top 10 list. So it was great to be back up there. And we unloaded our gear at camp. And from there, we loaded up the trucks and boogied on over to Flying Dutchman Paintball in Guilford, Maine. Thank you guys over there for hosting us. The whole group played. We had all, I want to say, 12 or so of us play. So we'd split up into 2 teams and kind of more or less go at each other. Up there, myself and a few of the other boys had played that course before. We had just been up in that neck of the woods and decided to go paintballing with a large group of us back in the day, a group of friends. So we had played up there, so we had pretty much a few of us had some type of idea what we were getting into with that course. That course is pretty well developed in a lot of ways. You have a lot of buildings and other things, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in a couple minutes. But if you haven't, like I said, similar to skydiving, you haven't gone paintballing, highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. You know what I'm saying? You can just, you can shoot somebody without getting in trouble, right? But seriously, paintball's a great time. Me and my friends used to go quite a bit in high school when we were younger together. And at this course, they have an array of different courses. They have a tower, kind of like a sniper tower set up. They have a village, a castle with a wall, forest with a bridge with choke points, with like sandbag, like machine gun nests that you can camp out in and stuff like that. So it's really developed. And if you're looking for a really diverse paintball experience, highly recommend going up there. Rentals are pretty good. Pricing is pretty more than fair. And you can shoot a lot of paint in the air for not too much money. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, we had a great time there. All the different courses start out in this little like town type setup. You can go into some of the buildings, not into others. Some of them you can get trapped in, hiding, ducking around in between trees. And basically one group starts at one end of town, the other group starts at the other end of town, and you meet in the middle. From there, we went on to, like I said, you had the 2 sides. You had kind of like a gully or a stream, I guess, in the middle. And you had 2 groups fighting over either side and trying to capture one group trying to capture the flag in the middle, one group defending. So to get to the flag, the group basically you had to go through a cheese grater, through the middle and get lit up, with paint, or you could go around the sides and try and flank around. And so things definitely went a little interesting there. Had some folks trying to flank around, ran out of paint, got shut up a few times, admittedly. So, that course was a little bit more interesting. We quickly moved from that one to another town that they had. One end of the town was all low buildings, and the other end of the town had 2, one lower tower type thing, and the other one had like a tower that you had to climb up with like a couple ladders. And so we had one of our guys stationed up there, and he was laying down. He was even using his boot. He was laying on his back, and so he had his boot used to stop the paint from coming up at him from the other side. And he was we may or may not have shot him from the back a few times just to mess with him. But like I said, a lot of general shenanigans this weekend here with this crew. But went went from the tower town there to they have like an actual like castle set up. And so it has, some bottom walls on the bottom, and then you can go inside and go up a couple ladders, and they have like a whole, like it's like a singular tower, like Rapunzel's tower, but you can, shoot paint from the top of it. And so down below they have different little barricades and stuff you can hide behind to try and get to the tower and take out the team that's in the tower. And so we played that for a little while. That was a pretty popular one amongst the group. And so we had one of the guys who couldn't be killed. He had like unlimited lives for the game we were playing, ran right up. The kid basically had green hair by the time we were done. He had basically dyed hair for the rest of the weekend. So, like I said, paintball is a ton of fun. But if you do go, don't wear anything you care about. Not that I did. I'd done it before, but you get a little greasy, but it's worth it. It's a really great time there. And one of the stories the owner told us about, though, in the safety talk at the beginning, a little bit different than the safety talk we had earlier in the day about skydiving. That's for sure. He told us about all the do's and don'ts. About not pointing the gun, using the barrel plug, stuff like that. And there was one point he said, all right, and my last piece, I didn't think I'd have to tell people this, but I had to add it in the rules recently since this spring. Some college kids tried to burn out some younger kids. So what ended up happening was you had another bachelor party group or college age group similar in age to our group that was up there. And so I think this is why he broke out the story, just to make sure it didn't happen again. But anyway, around the castle, there's some tall grass you can hide in. And if you're pretty small, you could be pretty well camouflaged from anybody even up in the tower looking down at you. And so he was telling us that these older guys were up in the tower, and these young kids, probably anywhere from 10 to 12 years old, something like that, were hiding in the grass, and they were killing more guys that were hiding up in the tower, and the guys in the tower were hitting the kids in the grass. And so the older guys started to get fed up, and so they came out of the tower, and they were getting just plinked from the tall grass. So they'd be looking out trying to find one, and this little kid would pop up, boom, shoot, drop back down, kind of like whack-a-mole with the little gophers. So with that being said, the college students took it upon themselves to use some U.S. military Vietnam era tactics, and they decided to burn out the 12-year-olds from the tall grass. So they decided to light said dry tall grass on fire with lighters, and the kids held out until they realized, oh crap, it's getting a little hot. And so the little ones took off, and then they had to put out a fire. And so that apparently you're not allowed to use napalm and or fire starting tactics to smoke out your opponent in paintball. I guess that's called going a little too hard or being too much of a tryhard there. So definitely a unique story there, and to see that people are using Vietnam-era tactics in paintball is definitely interesting. Finished up paintballing, had a great time with that, went right until sundown, went back to camp, rested up for the next day, and decided to go out four-wheeling in the morning. Made it maybe all of a mile before we got our first flat. So that didn't last very long, unfortunately, but then we went out and did some target practice, did some target shooting, which was a great time, and had a whole different array of guns there. One of my buddies, Jake, has a historic M1 Garand from World War II, so that's always cool when he brings that out. And there were a few other folks that had a few other unique shooting items there. So really good time whenever anybody brings out the gun, so to speak. There safely, obviously, we're a very safe group when it comes to that type of stuff. So finished up the trip by doing a little bit of fishing or a little bit of time out on the boat. We were also asked to take the boat out of the water, the pontoon boat they have up at camp. So we were asked to take the boat out of the water, which we did, no problem. However, when we were coming home, we ran into another little issue there. We ended up with a flat tire on the trailer, and we didn't have the big jack, so we had to take a couple little bottle jacks and kind of jack the trailer up. And this is on the side of 95, and of course it's on the side where you're actually like exposed to traffic. It's not on the side where you'd be safe. So luckily we had another truck or two to keep people off our back while we changed the tire. And so we ended up having to change the trailer tire with the boat on the back on the side of 95 on the way home. So it definitely was a little sketchy there. Definitely delayed us a little bit getting back, but it was definitely part of the experience. It's definitely something that I'll remember without question. Yeah, so that was the crazy Labor Day weekend, or very busy, I guess I should say, Labor Day weekend, filled with concerts, paintball, jumping out of planes, and Lord knows what else. So it was an awesome experience, very busy. Didn't get a lot of sleep, but that's okay. Those are sometimes some of the most worthwhile experiences. And now that we're a few weeks out from Labor Day weekend, Connor and Jasmine, and his now wife, Jasmine, have since been married, attended the wedding last weekend. So congratulations to you guys on your happy union, and wish you guys the best going forward, rather, and looking forward for that matter. And so looking forward as well, I'm actually going to be going whitewater rafting this weekend, so the adventures continue here. I'll be going up to the Forks, Maine as part of my last bachelor party of the year. I've had 4 weddings, 2 bachelor parties that I could attend, and this being the second one here. So I'm excited to go up to the Forks this weekend, hop in a raft down the Kennebec River. I've actually gone twice before. I did the Dead River when I was younger, and then I did the Kennebec River few years after that, so I'll be doing the Kennebec again. The water levels have been kind of funky this year, so we'll see how things go with the rain and everything like that, and so definitely looking forward to that. It's an awesome experience if you've never gone. For those of you that have never gone, sometimes you fall out of the boat, sometimes you stay in the boat, sometimes everybody falls out of the boat, so it's a great time, really is. It's a lot of fun. If you're an adrenaline junkie, you gotta go. So that being said, I'll have a wedding in October to go to. Looking forward to that as well. And also just looking forward to fall in general. Things are starting to cool off. You can feel the chill in the air a little bit. The leaves are starting to change. The foliage is going to be fantastic. Or if you look at the foliage tracker, yes, that's a real thing, and yes, I follow it. If you look at the foliage tracker, rather, you'll see that things have already started to kick off up north. We're starting to get towards that peak, the peak leaves, so to speak, here, guys. All right. And so if you want to see that, head up north sooner than later, because it'll be there and then it'll be gone, right? It doesn't take much for those leaves, rather, not the trees falling off the trees, but the leaves falling off the trees. There we go. So those don't last too long here. Another thing looking forward to for this fall, some more Patriots football. It's been an interesting start to the season for the Pats, but I have a lot of faith in the young team with Mac Jones. Just got to iron out a few things, and will be definitely interesting to see this next game with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers coming back to town. So we'll see who gets the last laugh there, Bill or Tom, and you can speculate, you can bet your money, you can think what you're going to think, but we don't know until the last whistle is blown, so to speak. So definitely looking forward to some more NFL football. Apple picking as well. Already went once at Lamo's Apples there out in Vassaboro. Great spot. Still have some great tasting apples in the kitchen. So fantastic time. Always got to love some apple picking. And then also too, hunting season continually. But specifically what you can hunt in fall. Duck, deer, partridge. More so the main focus here. Going to be going on a couple hunts with a few of my buddies. And that being said, I'm sure there will be some more stories from that in the near future here. So with that being said, guys, it's been great to have a little bit of a shorter episode this week. Just wanted to change things up a little bit. I know I've had a couple longer episodes here for the last few episodes here, so just want to change things up and, like I said, reconnect with you guys and just kind of tell you what's been going on with me. Just wanted to keep it short. I've been pretty busy here. I also, on top of podcasting and everything else, I also am a soccer coach too. I coach the Coney boys, the high school team, so that's had me pretty busy here, as well as a few other things in my personal life. So shout out to the Coney boys soccer team. They've been having a great season so far. Been playing well. Kids have a lot of heart, so keep an eye out for those guys as well. So like I said, just excited to be getting into fall here and just continuing with things here. I'll be back next in the next couple weeks here, specifically on 10/12 with episode 12 and on 10/26 with episode 13. So like I said, we're continuing on. I'll be joined by some more guests here in the studio, and just wanted to give you guys a little shake up here, a little bit shorter episode here for your listening joy and purpose here. So with that being said, guys, be sure to keep track of everything we're doing here on social media, the DuView Podcast on Facebook and everywhere else except on Instagram, where we're DuView207. So like I said, if you guys aren't following us already, go ahead and follow us, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give a like on some of our YouTube videos. That would be great. Definitely helps out with the algorithm and all that stuff, guys. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in to this fantastic episode 11 solo episode here, guys. And greatly appreciate the support, guys. Keep it up. Keep engaging with me on social media and whatever else. And we'll have another episode here for you in another 2 weeks, back with my first political guest. Give you a little snippet, little tease there. First political guest on 10/12, episode 12. So enjoy that, guys. Get ready for that. And like I said, be back here in a couple weeks. Until then, thanks for tuning in, and peace.